In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the problems you could run into with tongue and groove wood siding that's painted. You know, if we assemble everything and all of the joints are nice and tight and nothing ever happens, there's never any gaps, then we probably won't have any problems with our wood siding. But that's probably not going to happen. One of the biggest problems is that when we paint the wood siding, when it's nice and tight, is that we're not planning on it expanding or contracting. If the lumber contracts, then you're going to have areas that haven't been painted. They are now going to be exposed. So if you can imagine, when this is painted and everything's nice and tight, you're not going to be painting these areas here. And this is where the moisture can actually settle and absorb into the wood. So running horizontally, any water that runs off of the face can actually set in these areas and absorb into the lumber. So the water that sets here can absorb into the lumber in a variety of different ways. It might even be able to absorb into this at the top, because that would be exposed after the lumber started to shrink. Now the gaps are going to create another problem. Obviously I made this gap a little larger. It's about 1/4 of an inch, but let's just say it's about 1/8 of an inch. I put it in here for video purposes. If I made it too close, you wouldn't be able to see that the joints where the ends of the boards usually aren't going to be painted. So this would be an area where that would allow moisture to absorb into the wood also. Now, when the joints that are running vertically up and down, the water is actually going to be just rolling down. It's not going to be pooling up like it will at the horizontal joints. But this also creates another problem. Any water that gets behind here can actually get behind the siding. It might not get past the water-resistant paper, but it can get behind the siding and, of course, settle or remain for long periods of time on the back. Once it gets behind the tongue, it could actually go back here and actually travel quite a distance. You know, you could have a joint that's 4 foot away and have water over here because the water is sitting on top of the behind the tongue, on the tongue and groove siding, and just rolling in a variety of different directions. And again, a joint like this could create a problem for 4 or 5 boards. If you have multiple joints, then you're going to have multiple problems, you know, for something like this. Now, I went over this. I didn't draw a picture of it, but if you could just imagine, and I've seen this happen before, do not install the tongue and groove siding to where the tongue is down, because now you're going to have water that'll be absorbing into or settling into the groove area. If you are going to put siding on, it's usually better to do it like this. And feel free, if anybody has a better suggestion or a reason why they should put the groove down, I'd love to hear it, but haven't seen it yet. Now let's take a look at a few pictures. These are the reasons why I made the video. You can actually see that there is a small gap here, and I'm sure it was nice and tight at one time. Now the reason why I'm going to run through these pictures here, show you how some of you can just have a piece that cracks off. The paint can flake, and once the paint flakes, this could allow moisture in. And of course, a joint, as these separate, you're going to be able to have areas where moisture gets in. Now let's take a look at this. This is Primo lumber. You do not see any knots in it, or I should say this looks like a knot. Very few. This is really some nice looking wood. And you can see this one here is cupped, starting to bow. And not bow, starting to cup. And I've seen that on quite a few of these. Pieces will, as I mentioned, break off. And again, I'm just showing you that there really aren't a lot of knots in here. This was probably some real dry lumber when they installed it, and wouldn't have gave much room for the lumber to shrink but you can see that they're still having problems. It still shrank because this gap probably wouldn't have been here. You know, it would have looked more like this. And again, it wouldn't. If you have a problem like this, all you need to do is look in. You might need to get a magnifying glass to see if the area here hasn't been painted. Now, you can fill all of these up. This is part of the maintenance program that we have to do with our home. You can fill all of this up with caulking. You can put wood trim over it. You can fill all the holes. You can scrape the paint off, repaint it. This is all part. This is going to help your siding last longer. If it's already damaged, it's cupped, not a lot you can do with that. But another reason why I'm showing you this right here is you're probably thinking, why not paint the entire board? Why not paint the back, paint the top, and then install it? And that's not the best way to do it either. I've heard people have good results and bad results with it. Let's just say that you paint the entire board, and then you end up with something like this, where it's flaking off over time. You know, and let's say 5 years go by, and a couple of the pieces start to flake off. You might even have a gap where you start to get gaps. Some of the areas where it didn't get painted well, you know, where some of the wood has always been exposed. You know, like I said, if you painted everything perfect, then and you let it dry and you really took your time assembling it, then you might not have any problems. But any areas, that's the point I'm trying to make, any areas over time, any areas over time where the water can absorb into the front, there's a very good chance it's not going to be able to leave the wood. You know, it's not going to, it's more or less, let's just say that you had a problem like this here, where the water is going to absorb into the top of the siding, but everything on the bottom is painted, and it's not going to allow the moisture to leave the wood. Then the water here will actually just settle down here, or the moisture, and it'll rot the wood out even faster. So that's the reason why I wouldn't paint the entire board. If I was doing something like this, I would install it, make sure everything looked good, paint it, and then actually go out there every few years and take a look at it and see if I needed to touch it up, put some caulking in there, or paint it again. And that's really where most of this siding, wood siding, this ends up taking a beating, is because most of the people aren't maintaining it. They aren't, and if they are maintaining it, then there's another problem, you know. But a lot of times, maintenance is the biggest issue with most of the time when siding gets damaged. So, okay, I've spent enough time on this video, and hopefully it makes sense. And if it doesn't, hey, well, I gave it my best shot.